We are witnessing history being written in the sands of the Middle East, a tectonic shift that the empire in Washington and its poodle in Tel Aviv never saw coming. While the corporate media is busy wringing its hands, let's be clear about what is actually happening on the ground. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has unleashed a wave of vengeance that has literally set the Persian Gulf ablaze, and the so-called protection racket that the United States has been running with the petrodollar princes of the Gulf has collapsed in a spectacular fireball of their own making.
Iranian drones have struck one of the world's most critical oil facilities, sending shockwaves through global energy markets.
Iran drones have struck oil refineries in Saudi Arabia.
The Defense Ministry has just released a statement that 2 drones were intercepted and destroyed at one of its largest oil refineries.
In a coordinated and devastating response to the American-Israeli assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, the IRGC has done what the Pentagon said was impossible. They have systematically dismantled the energy infrastructure that keeps the Western war machine greased. We aren't talking about minor skirmishes here. We are talking about the complete decimation of America's strategic oil interests from the UAE to Saudi Arabia. The Ras Tanura refinery in Saudi Arabia, the largest oil export terminal on the planet, is currently a smoldering ruin after precision drone strikes evaded their expensive American defense systems. Qatari officials confirmed that their energy facilities were hit so hard that Qatar Energy was forced to halt LNG production entirely, sending shockwaves through European capitals that were already freezing without Russian gas. But the Iranians didn't stop at the oil. In a move of sheer strategic genius, they targeted the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Satellite imagery analyzed by major outlets confirms that what was once the crown jewel of American naval power in the region is now just rubble on the coast, with the main command headquarters completely destroyed by barrages of missiles and drones.
هاي وحدة تو لا حول ولا قوة صوب يطفوا يالله.
Before we dive deeper into the arithmetic of this economic doomsday for the West, I need you to hit that like button and share this video. The mainstream media is trying to spin this as escalation, but we are bringing you the truth about a legitimate defensive operation that is exposing the fragility of the American empire. Subscribe to the channel right now to support journalism that actually questions the war hawks, rather than cheering them on. Trust me, the next 10 minutes will change how you see the balance of power forever. Let's talk about the jugular, the Strait of Hormuz. The Americans have been living in a fantasy land where they thought their 5th Fleet guaranteed freedom of navigation. Well, the IRGC just gave them a reality check. A senior commander of the guards declared the strait closed. And unlike the empty threats we've heard in the past, they mean it this time. They haven't just threatened to sink ships, they've actually done it. Any vessel attempting to pass is being met with fire. We are talking about 20% of the world's oil supply being effectively corked in the bottle. The IRGC didn't just blockade it, they are actively targeting pipelines on land to ensure that not a single drop of oil flows to support the American and Israeli war machine. The calculus here is brilliant. You cannot fight a war without energy, and by strangling the supply, Iran is cutting the oxygen to the U.S. economy. Now the Americans, in their typical arrogant fashion, thought they had a backup plan. They gambled on seizing control of Venezuela's oil. The narrative was simple. If the Gulf blows up, we just pivot to Caracas. But that gamble has failed spectacularly, and rather embarrassingly. Reports are surfacing that the deep cooperation between Tehran and Caracas, forged over years of sanctions, has created a wall that U.S. intelligence simply cannot breach. The Venezuelans, refusing to be the America's gas station for a genocide, have sabotaged their own infrastructure or blocked shipments, rendering the U.S. plan useless. The White House thought they could just waltz into Venezuela and flip a switch to make up for the loss of Saudi oil. But they forgot that Iran has been embedding technicians and building alliances right under their nose in their own backyard. So not only are they losing the Gulf, they are being humiliated in Latin America. Let's get into the numbers, because arithmetic doesn't lie, and it certainly doesn't care about American exceptionalism. We are looking at the most violent spike in oil prices since the 1973 embargo. Within 48 hours of the Ras Tanura strike, Brent crude shattered every projection, flirting with that $200 a barrel mark that the IRCG advisor predicted. We are not talking about a temporary fluctuation. We are talking about a structural shift. Every time a refinery in Saudi or a loading dock in the UAE goes up in smoke, the price of gasoline in California and heating oil in New York jumps. Gold, the ultimate hedge against American stupidity, is going parabolic. Investors are fleeing the dollar because they realize that the petrodollar, the very foundation of U.S. economic dominance, is built on sand that is now soaked in burning crude. In the short term, this is causing panic. In the long term, this is decimating the ability of the U.S. to project power. You cannot project power when you can't fuel your ships. And you can't fuel your ships when your sailors are picking up the pieces of their bases in Bahrain. Speaking of Bahrain, let's zoom in on that little island, because it is the epitome of the Gulf betrayal. The Bahraini regime sold its soul for protection, hosting the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command, NAVCENT, and the previously mentioned Fifth Fleet. This base wasn't just a small outpost. It was the nerve center for everything the U.S. Navy does in the Middle East. It housed the mine-sweeping countermeasures, the patrol coastal ships, and the logistics hub for the entire region. The IRGC's strike on this base wasn't just a message. It was a surgical removal of the enemy's brain. By destroying the command headquarters, they have effectively blinded the American fleet in the Gulf. They are now operating without a head, which is why you are seeing disorganized attempts to respond rather than a cohesive strategy. And let's not forget Al Minhad Air Base in the UAE, a critical logistics hub for air operations, which was also hammered by ballistic missiles. The Gulf monarchies are now looking at the charred remains of their American protectors and realizing they bet on the wrong horse. Their skyscrapers are shaking, not just from the blasts, but from the fear that their 30-year security guarantee just expired. What Iran has done here is fundamentally alter the escalatory trajectory. By striking the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh and bases in Kuwait, they are showing that the green zone mentality is over. There is no safe space for American imperialism in the Middle East anymore. They are mocking the Gulf states publicly and militarily. These countries paid billions in petrodollars for Patriot batteries and advanced jets. And yet, Iranian missiles flew right through that so-called defense shield. The message is clear. Reliance on the United States is not a deterrent. It is a target. Well, the rage Iran are feeling is justified. For decades, the U.S. and Israel have acted with impunity, hiding behind the oil wealth of the Gulf. Now, the bill has come due. The economic strangulation of the United States is not just a military tactic. It is a moral imperative to stop the genocide and the meddling. By closing the Strait of Hormuz and torching the oil fields, Iran is not just fighting a war, it is redrawing the map. The age of the American petro-dictator is ending, not with a whimper, but with the roar of Iranian missiles striking the very heart of Western hypocrisy. Thank you, stay tuned and subscribe because this is only the beginning. The axis of resistance is just getting warmed up.